This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. A little
post-draft
drive. We're not going to do a mock draft today.
No, we're not going to talk about...
We could do an all-too-early look at next year's draft.
I'm such a sicko. I'm actually interested to look at those names. It's the first time you get exposed to names.
Well, here's what we would do. We would just do 32 quarterbacks in the first round.
Because it's always a better quarterback class next year, right? But it's crazy. I mean, now we know where these players landed. It's not like, well, what if they do this, and what if he goes here, and, Shedeur Sanders in the first round, and blah, 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 blah.
The Steelers come out of the 2025 draft with Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon, in the first round. Mm-hmm. Heard that a few times here. Then they drafted Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. Heard that a few times here.
Yeah, usually not in the third.
Not in the third.
We jumped on him earlier than that.
The surprise pick to me was Jack Sawyer.
Me too.
In round 4.
But I understand it more now than the second it happened, but that's definitely the most shocking pick to me.
Yeah, the value was definitely there. Yaya Black, or Yaya Black.
It's Yaya Black.
Yeah. Defensive tackle out of Iowa in the 5th round. We took him several times
in that neighborhood, right. Big body.
Will Howard, the quarterback out of Ohio State. We took him in our mock draft several times. Carson Bruner in round 7. They traded back before they took Black, and got another 7th round pick. Took Carson Bruner, the linebacker out of Washington, and then the other round 7 pick was Dante Kent, cornerback from Central Michigan.
Yeah, and frankly, we didn't do a whole lot of chatting about the 7th round picks. That's often the case. It's pretty late in the draft, but one of those last names was pretty familiar, to say the least. And I don't say it was a predictable draft, but I think we had a really good feel going in what they were going to do.
It was predictable if you listened to this show.
That's my point. Right. We got a pretty good feel for what they were doing. The Sawyer thing I didn't see coming, but like you said, I thought that was value. I mean,
there were times,
I wasn't big on him in the 2nd round. I was taking him in the 4th.
There were a lot of times when we would take an extra edge rusher later in the draft.
Yeah, because of value.
And it's like, okay, this guy's going to play special teams for you. He can do some stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you never want to get weak there. Yeah, right.
If you had a 2nd round grade on Jack Sawyer, or even a 3rd round grade on Jack Sawyer, and he's still available in the 4th round.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's what it comes down to. And we could talk about all these guys' specific fits, and we will to no end. And we got minicamp around the corner, and maybe a quarterback signed at some point. But all in all, I think it was a real solid draft. And I urge you greatly, don't forget you got DK Metcalf in this draft.
You got DK Metcalf, yeah.
I mean, let's just say hypothetical. You have all your picks. You draft Harmon in round 1, and then trade comes up when the Steelers were on the clock, and you take DK Metcalf. Like, whoa,
you've been extremely excited.
You've been losing your marbles. Yeah. Just because it happened weeks and months ago doesn't change who's going to be here in camp.
Absolutely. And, we talked about this at length. Despite every time the Steelers pick came up, because there was a certain quarterback who was still available.
Right.
Every time the Steelers picked until the round 6, I believe.
And I hate that the biggest story of the draft is Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
The guy was a 5th round pick.
The draft just didn't align itself, A, to take a quarterback because you had to love. They weren't going to reach for a quarterback.
No, right.
And B, they have a pretty good feeling that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign.
You really got that feeling being in the facility those 3 days, being around owners, coaches, GMs. They don't seem super worried about it, and we say this all the time. Teams don't lie when they spend their money or their draft picks or their assets, and they didn't go crazy at quarterback. I think they have pretty good idea. Good idea.
What's going to happen there? And that's one of the things when you look at the draft grades, and the people who are grading these are looking at, well, the Steelers didn't address the quarterback position until the 6th round. Well, what's that tell you?
Right.
Like, don't knock their draft. If you like the players that they drafted, but you're going to knock them because they didn't address quarterback until the 6th round, you're doing this the wrong way.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of write-ups and conversations about, well, now Aaron Rodgers holds all the cards, and he's going to, hold the Steelers' feet to the fire, and he's going to get more money, and he can get whatever he wants. I'm like, I don't think that's what happened at all.
No.
I think the fact that
the offer's the offer.
Right. I mean, that's not really how they operate, and I think that all that stuff's been worked out. If it's not, I need more money, or maybe he wanted to see, might they take a quarterback high? I don't know.
Maybe they wanted to see that.
Right, exactly. And I think I'm almost certain we said this like in the 7th round during the live coverage, that I very much believe if Rodgers would have signed a month ago, they make the exact same draft.
The draft is the same way.
The exact same draft picks, right.
I mean, you got your defensive lineman in the first round.
That was a need.
That was a definite need.
Yeah.
And people who I can't believe the number of national analysts that overlook that as a need for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't believe it. Running back at pick 83 was a need.
Yeah. They were going to draft a running back in this draft, no matter what.
They took 2 defensive linemen like we thought they were going to early. Mm-hmm. They didn't wait and do, I'll take throw a flyer on a 7th round defensive lineman. No, because they expect Black to play some snaps this year.
Yeah. 2 guys that they're kind of counting on.
Yeah.
Especially Harmon, of course.
Then you add your developmental quarterback, a guy that's going to be maybe your long-term backup for at least the next 4 years, ideally. Maybe he develops into something beyond that.
Yeah, you take a bite. Yeah,
and then you take a couple of guys in round 7 that are going to help you on special teams. And
really good special teams.
Maybe Kent is your nickel.
Maybe. There are some traits there. I didn't know much about them. But between Kent and Bruner, they played a lot of special team snaps. And they're not throwaways on defense.
No,
right. Not at all.
So I think they helped themselves. Then you look at what they did post-draft and the guys that they went out and signed.
Castro looks like he could be in the mix.
Sebastian Castro is a player.
Yeah.
I
thought he'd get drafted.
I thought he would too. The only knock that I had on him going into this, he's 25, but I don't care as an undrafted free agent.
Sure,
great, that's fine.
If he makes the roster or contributes in any way, special teams / your last safety on the roster, whatever, that's a home run. Much like Beanie Bishop last year.
Yeah, you got maybe a developmental small school offensive lineman in Aiden Williams, the guard out of Minnesota Duluth. He was a tackle in college.
Yeah.
Okay, let's.
There's going to be a learning curve, obviously, but there's some traits there to build around.
A couple of wide receivers, a fullback in DJ Thomas
stuff's
Jones.
Interesting. They flirted with that last year, and I definitely think within the. I don't know about the final roster, but there's a receiver spot to be had here on a practice squad or whatever.
Yeah, so I like what they've done here. They've set themselves up well, I believe, moving forward, and we'll see. I mean, I think this roster, and we'll go over the roster now, how it appears in the next segment, but it looks like they filled all the holes with one exception.
One big one, right.
And I think they feel like that is going to get taken care of here in the next couple of weeks.
And I bet they're not done. There's going to be a name or two that maybe we didn't see coming that they kind of add to the mix between now and camp. Every team will do that. I mean, there's, 300 human beings walking around right now without a contract that are going to be football players this year, and a couple of them will be Steelers too.
Yeah.
So the nuts and bolts of it are done. Quarterback aside.
I understand quarterback is a massive.
No, of course.
It's the biggest thing on your defense or your offense, I should say. It's the biggest.
But they know that too, folks. They're not ignoring it.
They have an idea.
Right?
Yeah, they're not ignoring the position like some draft analysts seem to think. Well, Steelers just ignored quarterback.
Right.
What's that telling you?
A lot of these draft grades. I'd have given them a much better draft if they were to address quarterback earlier.
Well, if they'd addressed quarterback earlier, then you
wouldn't have Caleb Johnson.
Right.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have got Derek Harmon. You wouldn't have got Caleb. No, that's not how this works.
That's not how it works. You got to weigh your options and the value and what's available. And
if they would have taken Sanders, for example, instead of Sawyer, Steelers get an A+.
Did he become a better prospect all of a sudden? Or more valuable all of a sudden? Right. I mean, we get the Sanders stuff out of the way. I mean, part of me hates that we're talking that this is the Shedeur Sanders draft. I mean, Cam Ward's a great prospect. No one seems to talk about this guy as the first pick of the draft.
First overall.
And the other guy was in the 5th round. Now, I'll be honest, if you look at my Twitter timeline, I'm driving down to the Steelers facility on Saturday and thought, okay, I'd consider him now, but he's a day 2 prospect that fell for some other reasons, apparently. I mean, the Browns took a quarterback ahead of him. We'll talk about the Browns draft. He's not the answer. It's not like, boy, they missed this golden opportunity. I wish him well.
And it's something that we talked about in the pre-draft process. you're not just picking a player.
Mm-hmm.
You're picking a brand.
Yeah.
And you've got to deal with the fallout that comes with that.
And if you were an Elway-like prospect, you don't mind doing that.
Right.
But he's a backup, round 3-ish type prospect that probably got driven up in a class that's not loaded with top dudes. And is it worth all the other stuff? Well, the league told you the answer.
Right. They said they don't want the distraction that I mean,
the payoff's not great enough.
To be,
he might end up being a good player.
To be that kind of distraction off the field, where the Browns are going to have to hold press conferences with like he's the starter.
I equated it to when the Jets signed Tebow, let alone when the Broncos drafted him in the first round, which was crazy.
It's very similar.
The Jets drafted Tebow to be a personal protector / special teamer and third-string quarterback.
And you got to have
a press conference.
Got to have press conferences because of who they are.
And their stars on the team that have been in the league forever get a microphone in their face. So what do you think of the addition of Tebow? Well, I hope he makes the team.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
I haven't met him yet. But
right. The Browns have 4 quarterbacks. So who's going to be the starter? How's that going to pan out? We'll see.
Yeah, it's a strange dynamic to have for a guy who isn't your starter or star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just there's a team dynamic to it. It's not fantasy football. You're just not adding names.
Yeah, it's. I always look back at that on the way when the Jets drafted Joe Namath back in way back when,
sure.
And they gave him the first $1 million contract.
I think it was $100,000.
Was it $100,000? Yeah, I think it was
so.
$100,000. His first $100,000 contract, and he's going into that locker room for the first time. The offensive linemen are like,
"Who's this guy?" Right?
Yeah.
Hey, you better be good.
You better be good. We're being asked about you all the time. We got to deal with all. Hey, what do you think of getting Broadway Joe or Joe Willie at that point?
Yeah. You better be good, and he was.
He was worth it.
Better prospect than Shedeur too.
A little bit better.
Yeah. But anyway, I
hope it works out for him. I really do.
I do. And this draft has been way too much Shedeur Sanders talk, and he's not a Steeler. I'm absolutely fine with that. Move on, Move on. Yeah.
The Steelers, I think when you look at what they've acquired, again, to me, it's all going to be determined, and as is always the case, what happens with Derek Harmon, not the second-round pick this year, but the third-round pick, Caleb Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
What those two do this year is going to determine whether people look, well, this was a good draft class or whether it was a bad one.
And those are the guys that you would expect, as is the case with the other teams in the league. They're the early picks. But particularly how needs felt, matched value, matched the players you added, you need those guys to be good this year.
Yeah.
I mean, not like, I hope they turn out to a pretty good player in a year or two. No, we need them now.
Need them to play.
Right.
Need them to be players.
And make an impact.
And I think it also played out, if you look at how this whole thing went, kind of like we talked about a lot, whereas the value was on day 2 and then beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at who they got, Caleb Johnson, Jack Sawyer, Black, Howard. I mean, those are guys that we were talking about. A lot of those guys, second, third, even fourth-round grades for some of the later guys, and they went beyond that because I think some teams did reach for need. Oh,
of course. And this doesn't mean it's going to be a great draft by any stretch, but Warren Sharp's a big analytical guy and blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a consensus board out there. They'll take Mel's and Todd's and all these guys, and they'll combine and be like, this is the consensus draft board. Now, the NFL knows more than all those guys put together.
Right.
I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of value compared to the consensus board, I think the Steelers had like the 6th best value of anyone. Like maybe they didn't plan on taking Sawyer, but
there he was.
30 picks there later than I thought, so let's do it.
Yeah, and that's I
don't think there's any reaching.
That's how you end up just acquiring depth and good players.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have enough good players,
right? Because injuries hit, contracts aren't very long in this league. You're going to need them.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll take a look at that Steelers roster and what it looks like now with these latest additions right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, as I promised, we'll go over the Steelers roster as it now appears following this weekend. And we'll start with the wide receiver position. You got DK Metcalf, George Pickens. You still have Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson there. There's 4. Ben Skoranek is 5. Then you look at Scotty Miller there. You got Rock Taylor, one of the undrafted rookies that they brought in. Brandon Johnson, who he's not a throwaway player there as well. He was with the team last year. Lance McCutcheon, and then the other undrafted free agent they brought in, Keyshawn Williams out of Indiana.
You love your top 2. I mean, I think those 2 stand alone as every down players. We know this is not a heavy 11 personnel team. The third guy's not going to get called upon as often as most teams. But Austin more than proved to me that he's that, at least, at this point. Roman Wilson's a wild card, but I don't know if there's any reason to think less of him than he did exactly 1 year ago when they used a third-round pick on the guy. I think Skoranek has value. I think he was one of my favorite bring-back guys.
I feel pretty good about the top 5.
I do too. And Wilson, I can't wait to see what he proves. Now, I'll probably say this about several positions. If there's a veteran that's been around the block that's now taking 50 cents on the dollar on a 1-year deal, I look at like Keenan Allen. I'd consider it. There's room for that guy, or I'm very fine with this.
Or just wait it out, and somebody gets cut at the end of training camp you didn't expect to see there. We'll bring him in as our number 6.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that 6 will make the team when it's all said and done. But maybe there's a spot for that. Maybe they're not done there, but I think they're in really good shape.
On the offensive line, you got Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautano. You got a couple of first-round picks and a second-round pick on that line. Then behind those guys, you have Dylan Cook and Calvin Anderson, along with Doug Nestor at the tackle position. At the guard position, you got Spencer Anderson, Max Sharping, Aiden Williams, one of the undrafted that they signed.
Yeah. He's a small school guy. Right?
And Stephen Jones is another guy that they got there. And then you got Ryan McCullum and Lecitus Smith as your center backups.
If I had a draft criticism, it would have been I would have liked to see a draft pick used on an offensive lineman. But I probably would say that about every team in the league that didn't, and it wasn't a very good offensive line draft. So I don't know, boy, in the 5th round they should have taken player X.
Honestly, that's probably why a guy like Jack Sawyer ends up going into the 4th round, because we saw some offensive linemen who we looked at and like, that guy might be a 5th round guy. Well, they're getting taken in a 3rd.
He's going a 3rd, right. It's just a supply-demand thing, which is why I want them, but that's why the other 31 teams overreached on these teams, too.
I mean, you draft 5 in the previous 2 seasons.
Right.
They're all still going to be on your roster.
Yeah, you draft 5 in the previous 2 seasons. You took 3 defensive front players in this one. I mean, like, it drafts the offense first. And
maybe next year you take 1 of each, and you just got
well, because you got the young guys there. Now, I do think there's some volatility here. You got the 2 tackles that have immense ability, but you're not out of the woods on those guys yet. No, for sure. I think Seumalo's on the back 9 to be kind, but he's the veteran, and here's a spot that I definitely would have some interest in what's out there, but they're not going to be. John Hanna's on out there.
No, they're not going to be household names that you pick up. I mean, if you look at it last year, they picked up a guy like Sharping.
Yeah.
When they had all the injuries early in the season. Well, he's got 40 career starts. It's not like he's a throwaway guy.
Sharping and Calvin Anderson don't seem like much.
They were both picked up at that time.
They were both picked up, and I think there's a reason they gave him money, too. I think they were pretty happy with that experiment.
Yeah.
But I would always be open to more of those.
Well, you're always looking, yeah.
Always.
And, that's one situation there where they have all those compensatory picks next year. You're going to have 11 picks available next year. If you need to acquire somebody,
you could
trade one.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of cap space.
At tight end, you got Pat Freiermuth. You got Darnell Washington. You got Donald Parham. You got now J.J. Galbraith, who is also a
he's the fullback tight end type. Right?
Actually, he's the undersized guy out of.
Okay, I got the two.
And then they got Connor Hayward and DJ Thomas Jones, who is listed as a fullback by them. Fullback, H-backs. They get a couple of those guys. They got some big bodies, little bodies.
Yeah. It's a lot of tight ends on the roster for going into camp. Was it 6 or 7?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to probably keep 4 under Arthur Smith, which worked out fine last year. I'm interested to see Parham in person.
Yeah.
I mean, he's huge. I know that much. I've seen him on tape and on Sundays, et cetera. But I think they love their top 2. And they should.
Yeah,
and
right.
I'm expecting even a little bit more out of those guys this year.
At running back, they added Caleb Johnson in the third round to that group that also includes Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, Cordell Patterson, Aaron Shampkin, Jonathan Ward, and Evan Hall.
It's premature to say this, but I think before long it'll be pretty clear that Johnson is the 1A, Warren's the 1B.
I think you keep Warren in the same role that he's had.
He's definitely your third down guy, plus more early down stuff too. Gainwell's a fallback option, safe, number 3, cool. But I think Johnson's a wonderful addition to that group.
Oh, tremendous. Yeah. Tremendous. I think you got an every down back potentially.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how he does in pass
Scheme
protection
fit,
and things of that nature. But at the very least, he replaces Najee Harris's role.
Yeah. And I think he's just a better scheme fit. He's younger. I think he's got more big playability. I think he's got better vision. And Najee was a good player, but you might have a better running back room than you did last year.
Yeah. Quarterback, you added Will Howard to the group with Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson. Interesting to note, Will Howard and Skylar Thompson split time at K-State.
Yeah, I heard
for 2 seasons.
That's crazy. Yeah,
they were teammates.
Interact now or overlap now. Thompson isn't terrible, by the way.
No.
I kind of liked him coming out of Kansas State. He's had some struggles when thrown into the mix. We never talk about him, but I am interested to watch him in camp.
He had to go in and start a playoff game.
Right. He had a tough situation without much of an O-line. I'm not saying he's wonderful, but he's not. I am interested to watch him in black and gold. Getting Howard where they did, I think, is wonderful. And the more and more that I'm around the facility, you're there more, I think they're really content, happy, excited, quietly about Rudolph. I'm not saying he's the answer this year, that he's going to take him to the Super Bowl. That's not the plan. But I think they're very happy he's in black and gold.
And I think in the next few weeks here, we're going to see somebody else added to that room.
I think that's an absolute
definite. First of all, we know they're going to take 4 to training camp.
Yes.
They've only got 3 on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even sign one after the draft just to have another body
Another camp arm. The writing's on the wall.
The writing is on the wall. It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen, right.
So we'll see.
Maybe any minute now. Who knows?
When. Yeah, that when is the only question. Moving over to the defensive side of things, you added Derek Harmon in the first round. He is immediately, in my eyes, the Larry Ogunjobi replacement.
I agree. I mean, between him, Benton, and Hayward, those are your top 3 guys. Clearly, and then everyone else is battling for 4 through 7 or whatever.
Yeah. Then you got Isaiah Loudermilk. You got Yaya Black, who you drafted in the 5th round. Daniel Ekulele, or Ukele. I can't.
I need to get better at that too.
Ukele, who you signed as from New England. Logan Lee still on the team. Yet another Iowa player.
Right.
They actually have 4 Iowa players in this year's draft because Lee was hurt all last year.
Okay. Yeah.
Jacob Slade, who they added, Dean Lowry, Ezi Odomaweo, and Dominique Davis, another guy that they signed.
I know Odomaweo's been in the league too. Yeah. I mean, he's not a big name guy, but we talk about this a lot with the O-line. If there's only 7 spots,
you got 11
probably
guys.
9 NFL players in that group.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that shapes up, but that could be a very competitive bottom of the room battle.
Yeah, they made the move to release Montravius Adams today.
Shocked me a little bit. I wonder if there's somebody else they have their eye on. I don't know.
I just wonder, he had the knee injury last year.
Yeah, never quite looked the same.
It didn't look the same when he came back. I just wonder if that's something that they looked at and said that's going to be a long-term problem for him. He's 30 now.
And they didn't need the cap space. I mean, I just assumed that after they drafted Black that, we probably can move on now.
Yeah, maybe just did him a favor because he has been a good soldier for them.
No.
At outside linebacker, well, you went out and added Jack Sawyer to a room that already includes T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig. You still have Jeremiah Moon there as well. What does this mean for DeMarvin Leal?
That's a great question. I haven't thought about that angle at all. I mean, which maybe he should have been lumped with the other room. Is him
That's
and
going to
Sawyer?
be a question. Does he move to defensive line now, or is he an outside linebacker full time?
It's not like you've seen him lately, but do we know what he weighs? I mean, I'm curious.
He had a neck injury last year. That ended his season. They also have Eku Leota there and Julius Welshoff
Okay, he
on
was
the
around
roster.
last year and
did
a couple
some
things.
Did some nice things too. So they're really kind of stacked. Thomas Rush, another guy that they have there as well. They're really
including Liao. I wonder if they keep 6. Is it Moon and Liao fighting for a spot, or they both make it, or whatever? Obviously, special teams has a lot to do with it. But I do think, and we'll talk about all these individual players a lot going forward. I didn't see the Sawyer pick coming, but they've made 2 acquisitions there, Preston Smith and Sawyer, both that don't look like Herbig.
Well,
and Liao's a big guy.
You even
like
go back the year
setters.
before that, and they tried to bring him back in training camp. Marcus Golden was a big
body, not super twitchy off the edge, like a Herbig.
Like a power pass rusher.
It just screams Ravens.
Yeah.
You got to play the Ravens twice. And
we want somebody who's going to set the edge.
Yeah.
If we have to, pull one of our starters off the field for whatever reason, even if he's off the field for 3 plays, I want a power edge rusher out there.
Yeah.
One of the things that we saw a lot last year, other teams know the splits as well.
Oh, the Hayward stuff, yeah.
When Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt were off the field, run the ball.
Yep. And I think an immediate shortcut that fans think are, stop the run defense, I need to put Casey Hampton in the middle. It's helpful, but setting the edges too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a group effort.
Force everything back inside your inside linebackers who are really fast and let them make plays. Speaking of those inside linebackers, you have Patrick Queen, you have Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb. They brought in Malik Harrison in the offseason. Mark Robinson's still here. They had Devin Harper, who's a guy that they brought in as a camp invite. And then they drafted Carson Bruner in the 7th round.
Just for the inside linebacker room specifically, I'm like, boy, that's too crowded. Does that mean him and Mark Robinson are going to battle for a spot? I don't think Harrison's in any jeopardy in neither of the top 3. But special teams.
They've kept 6 there before.
They have.
Now, it depends on how many defensive backs you keep.
They don't all have to be active on game day. And, Harrison's a really good special teamer. Robinson's a really good special teamer. I would imagine Wilson's role on special teams is going to decrease. Bruner's a great special teamer.
Yeah. And if you're like 2 years ago, they had the least amount of special teams plays from their linebackers in the league.
In the whole league, right.
Well, now you've got the potential here, because they'll use Sawyer on special teams as well.
I don't know how much he's done, but he's going to.
He's going to. And I believe he should be able to do it. You might have the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Moon as well. I'm just saying some of the edge guys.
And especially with this new kickoff rule, I'd like to have 4 or 5 linebackers out there on the field.
You don't want all corners.
No.
You need some size.
You got to be able to get off a block and make a play.
Physicality against try to drag a Cordero Patterson down.
Right.
Right. You don't want a bunch of 180-pound guys.
It's safety. Well, today we find out that Ryan Watts, the 6th-round pick from last year, the neck issue that he had
That's kind of
at
a
the end of
heartbreaker.
training camp last year is going to end his career.
I was pretty psyched about him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but they did go out and they added. They had this. You got this Sean Elliott. You've got Minka Fitzpatrick there. They brought in Juan Thornhill in the offseason. You still have Miles Killebrew, who is your special teams captain and a All-Pro
Those 4
special teams guy.
making the team.
You got Joshua Bledsoe there, and you added in as an undrafted free agent Sebastian Castro from Iowa,
who's easily could have been a 6th or 7th round pick. That's the type of prospect he is. Thicker build, not a tremendous tester, but played a lot of football
at Iowa. Which is a lot of defensive backs in the league.
Yep, tough, smart, all those things. Special teams, of course. Plays near the line of scrimmage well, tackles, physical. Childhood heroes, Troy Polamalu. All right, yeah, let's go.
And also played a lot of nickel.
Yeah, he'll
safety.
play some slot. Yeah, right.
For Iowa.
So we'll get to the corners, but between Bishop, Eccles, Thornhill, Castro, the slot stuff might be a lot different this year.
I think it's going to be. I mean, you got 2 bigger bodied guys there for maybe when you're
safety types.
That are safety types for when you're playing these run heavy teams that want to get you in 11. They come out in 11 personnel and then want to run the ball.
Right.
I got a couple of bigger bodies there that I can put out there now.
Or even the Ravens, if they're going to put likely Ann Andrews out there. They're not exactly Mark Bruner like blockers.
Yeah.
Maybe I match that with nickel, but I have Thornhill on them or some, Castro or whatever.
The cornerback position, you guys, Joey Porter Jr., you got Darius Slay, Corey Trice, James Pierre, Deshaun Jameson, Kyler McMichael, Cameron McCutcheon, Brandon Eccles, Beanie Bishop, Dante Kent, one of the other seventh round pick, and then, how do you view Castro there? Maybe he's in that nickel conversation, but they've got a lot of bodies there. Kent was the last pick that they made in this draft, but he's a guy that's played a lot of football at Central Michigan. And
I think Mike Harmon said at the final press conference or right after that pick that he is inside, slot and outside capable. We'll see. He's not huge, but he's not tiny.
He had like 47 pass breakups in his career at Central Michigan.
Lot. He doesn't have a lot of picks, but he's got his hands on the ball a lot. He's a pretty good tester, too.
Really good tackler.
Ton of special teams.
Yeah, ran like a 4.39.
Has some return ability, too.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know anything about him before they picked him, but the more I researched, I'm like, oh, that's very worth a 7th-round pick.
Yeah. So, I look at that group. Would it have been nice to add a good young talent to that? Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Slade's 34 years old. But you have Trice there. It's not like you're counting.
Trice is the wild card to me.
You're not counting on Trice to start.
Right.
But if he develops into a starter, great.
If he pushes for it or looks like a future starter, that's why I think he's the wild card.
Yeah. So, you still got a guy like James Pierre there who was maybe
he's played defensive snaps. He's there for special teams, right?
So I don't mind that group. Then you look at the.
I thought they might draft a 6'1" long arm corner though.
Well, I think they looked at it, and maybe that would have been where they took Sawyer at. And maybe. A lot of times that's what we did in that round.
There were guys in that
we were looking in that
neighborhood.
There were still guys available. I remember writing up, here's some guys that they could look at.
Riley and Zoffrager and those type of dudes.
Those guys were still there, and I think they looked at Sawyer and said, this is too good of an opportunity to pass up.
Mm-hmm.
You have the two punters, Cameron Johnston, who's by all accounts is recovering well and looks like he's going to be healthy. Corliss Waitman.
You got 2 NFL punters.
Yeah. You have Chris Boswell at place kicker. They brought in Ben Sauls from Pitt as their camp leg, although that's a little different since he is a left-footed kicker.
He is, and he's not going to be Boswell out.
No, and that's not going to happen.
Right.
Your long snapper is Christian Kuntz, although I'll say that Bruner has done some long snapping, and he's got some of that in his background. So
that's pretty well set. I would love for them to turn Waitman into a 7th-round pick at some point because he's pretty darn good.
He's good.
He's having a tough time making the team.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe you flip something there, and maybe you trade your 7 and get a 6 for him.
Exactly,
something like that.
I mean, there will be teams that could do a lot worse than Waitman when it all comes down to cut down day.
Yeah, I just look at the roster and I'm like, okay, where could they add at? Because I can remember us sitting there we're doing shows at Chuck Noll Stadium a couple of years ago, and I'm like, they're still a linebacker short.
When got Alexander.
They went out and signed, Quan Alexander. It's like,
some of those things will happen, right?
And it was like, I think it was within a day or two. Like I'm watching, I've got the binoculars. We're up there in the press box, and I'm looking around. I'm like, I'd still like to see one more linebacker,
one more guy, right?
Yeah, maybe it's another wide receiver. Maybe it's another offensive lineman.
Makes some sense. Maybe a slot capable receiver. I brought up Keenan Allen's name a lot. I mean, that's kind of pie in the sky, but I mean, somebody like that. O-lineman's going to be a lot thinner. I mean, we could come up with receiver names people know that are going to be in the league.
Yeah.
If an outside corner became available, maybe, but the defense is pretty stacked.
The defense looks pretty good.
Would you consider, I don't know the name, but like a 35-year-old nose tackle that's done it for 100 years that just eats blocks like it's his job? Those guys are always available.
I don't know.
I don't know if they want that guy
You just drafted
anymore.
2 guys there, and you signed 2 guys already. It's like.
But they mentioned Black as more of a end than nose.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought maybe a power guy in the middle that's just a massive human being. But I'm not sure if they want that guy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to play 8 snaps a game.
Right.
Is it
not
worth
help on
it?
special teams and right.
And the other team's might be happy when you put him out there. Okay, they bring out that big nose tackle, and now we're just going to throw.
So
you got to be able to rush a passer a little bit.
I know, and I don't think the Steelers are in this market, but who knows? But like Adam Schefter put out a name of 12 guys that could get traded on draft day. None did.
None.
I mean, that doesn't mean that Jalen Ramsey is still going to be a Dolphin or whoever else. And I'm not saying they're going to go trade for Jalen Ramsey, but there's some names that are going to get moved still.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how that all shakes out. And, I want to see what they look like on the field. That's the next step now as we get here in a couple of weeks.
Camp, but I would like to see where are they aligning, Wyatt Black, guys like that. You know? What's the plan?
I don't know if it's a glaring need. I think people are underestimating the ability of Brandon Echols a little bit.
I was going to go there. Yeah.
Well, they need to get another cornerback. They've got a bunch of different options now in the slot, including a couple
safeties,
including a couple of safeties who have slot capability, who played that spot in the past, which lessens the need, perhaps, for Echols to be the slot.
I don't know what to make of him. I'm excited to kind of see him live.
When we talked to him,
usage.
He was asked, do you prefer to play inside or outside? He said, I feel like I'm an outside cornerback.
Yeah,
and that's largely.
I think most of his snaps have been outside.
Most of his snaps. Now he's played inside in a pinch.
Was it 2 years ago with the Jets? Because they had Reed and they had two
really
good outside
They had
guys.
Michael Carter inside, who's considered a pretty good slot.
Right,
and he was the fourth guy. He bumped in there in dime situations. But when they
obviously Sauce was on one side. Reed
but when they had
guy.
Injuries, he played outside.
I thought he was
the third cornerback.
So would you describe it like this with the Jets? There were Sauce and Reed on the outside, Carter on the inside, which was as good as any corner trio in the league, really. I think he was all their backups.
Right.
I think
he's Carter's backup in the slot. He's also the backup, the both outside cornerbacks.
And in dime, he's out there.
And in dime, he's the Cam Sutton. He's their Cam Sutton.
He's their Cam Sutton. Yeah. Right. Which great. The earlier version. I mean, this last version.
Except he's much faster and much more athletic.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I think he can back up all. Can he start any? I guess we'll figure that out. I mean, including slot. I do have some concern that if Slay hits a wall or gets hurt, can we trust Trice? You know what I mean? I just don't know.
It might be Echols.
It might be Echols. Right. But that's the one position along with O-line that I would still my eyes open for a corner of any type. Sure. I mean, I would be not actively pursuing or calling.
And they've done that. Like they've gotten guys in recent years who've been cut loose by other teams who were highly regarded people in the draft, and you just bring them in.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's see if our system makes things a little bit different for him. He hasn't worked out there. Those guys are always available.
They're always available. Yeah.
It's just that position, more so than any other position in football, is so up and down. It's like a roller coaster.
It is. I mean, it's 100% true. Like, this is a bigger conversation, but like, I thought Jari Alexander would not be a Packer today. They didn't use a corner pick until the 7th round. And we did an NFC North breakdown today on a different show. I'm like, wow, they ignored corner that much. Are they friends all of a sudden? Now, I'm not implying the Steelers should trade for Jari Alexander. But, my wheels turn and I get excited. You get Jalen Ramsey for a 4th or 5th round pick. Now, he's a big contract.
It's going to cost you.
But he can do everything in your secondary, too. And instead of just being, I think we're good there, you could be incredible there. Now I know that's
not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
They're not going to sign Darius Slay and then cut him.
Oh, I don't think they're going to cut him. I think Ramsey would be your slot. He would be all the above. I mean, he's done he's played dime linebacker.
That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I don't want to get people excited, but you could make moves like that if you wanted to.
We have to be careful with what we say on podcasts because a lot of times this stuff gets picked up. And Matt Williamson says Steelers going to trade.
Yeah. I'm not saying gonna. I'm just saying he's cheap. And all these veterans.
He's cheap in what you would have to pay for him in draft capital.
Right.
He's not cheap in what you'd have to pay him. It'd be $20+ million.
It's guaranteed too.
It's fully guaranteed.
That's
why Miami wants to get out of it.
It's all about. It's like Cousins. It's like how much are you picking up? How much am I picking up? Blah 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 blah. And I hesitated to even bring it up because I don't want to get people excited. But it did shock me that no veterans got traded over the weekend. Goddard and Hendrickson and all these guys that were on the block. Nobody went. And can you get them cheaper now than you could have a week ago? I don't know. It's just.
I think it depends
on. Look under every stone.
I think it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a team that got completely. We saw over the years, for example.
I don't think Hendrickson's moving.
There were about 5 consecutive years where the Steelers they need to draft some cornerback help. But every time they got in the first round, all the corners were gone by the time it got to their pick.
Because they don't pick.
Because they weren't picking in the top 20.
Right.
They were picking in the bottom 20, and so it reached a point where all of a sudden now you got to take I think it was the 6th cornerback. You take Artie Burns. You got to have a cornerback. The guys we were taking in the 4th and 5th rounds didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Got to have a better.
But that doesn't mean you take
corner.
the 50th best player at 25.
No, you don't reach like
Which
that.
Maybe that was Burns. I mean, or close to it.
He wasn't quite that.
I mean, that was pretty steep.
He was like 5th, I think.
I don't say, but I doubt he was the 25th best player in the draft.
Right.
I mean, it was like, we got to get corners.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what teams are doing with those linemen like crazy right now.
So, you end up stuck in that spot. So there's got to be somebody in this particular draft, who maybe needed cornerback help, and you look at the Packers.
The Packers, right.
Maybe they just swap.
Every
you
time.
take Jair Alexander, we'll take
Ramsey or
we'll
whatever.
take Ramsey, and
they just aren't happy here, and we just need to change
call it
the
a day.
Right. But I did find it odd that just all across the league, no veterans.
That would actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah, right. I'm going to say, who says no to that? What was the other thing I was saying? This is a bigger conversation, but one of my slight criticisms of the Steelers draft was I would have loved to have seen them draft an offensive lineman. I just did the same. We just broke down the Browns yesterday. I killed them for not taking any offensive linemen. And then we started the series on my other podcast where we're breaking down teams, and everyone either didn't take one I'm critical of or took them around too early. Like
or 2 rounds too early.
2 rounds too early. The tax on O-linemen this year was double than what it's used to be.
It was like quarterbacks.
It was like quarterbacks. I mean, worse. I mean, I wish you could have got a Will Howard in the 6th round that plays guard. I mean, you can't.
They just weren't available.
I mean, like we did I mentioned the Packers. We both like Belton. They had to take him in the 2nd round.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
those guys went quick.
On O-line was crazy.
Those guys went quick, and I think that's why, like, for example, the Ravens, who had 11 picks, ended up taking 3 of them.
Right. A lot of teams just took a bunch of late ones and hope any of them stick. Yeah. I mean, it was a bad O-line draft. The need is greater than ever. Dan Moore makes $20 million. I mean, it's just supply and demand. That doesn't excuse the Browns because they had the picks.
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking linebackers and running backs and stuff, but then they need starters on the O-line. But the cost of acquiring O-linemen in this draft was bonkers.
It was insane. As opposed to last year when they were available throughout.
Yeah. A lot of people were critical of the Vikings, who didn't have many picks. They didn't trade back. They took the guard Jackson from Ohio State in the 1st round. Well, they weren't going to get a guard anywhere else. Maybe he's not the 25th best player in the draft, or
but they didn't have a 2nd round pick.
They didn't have a 2nd or 3rd when the draft started.
If they had not drafted him,
they're taking a 6th rounder in the 4th round.
Yeah,
I mean that's what this draft was.
Yeah, it just worked out that way, and that happens. And you can't control what other teams do.
No,
you can only control what you do. And I think that's where you get yourself into trouble. Though, is when you start reaching for those guys.
Like I didn't think Banks.
When you have to have it. The Steelers had to have defensive back help.
Yeah.
In the late 2010s.
Yeah. I
mean, and so they take Artie Burns. They take Sean Davis in the 2nd round. They take Terrell Edmonds at the end of the 1st round. It's like
it's not a position you want to be in.
You don't want to have to take those guys.
No, right? Because the chances of them hitting to their fullest degree are less because they're not the best prospect you could take at that time. But teams are doing with O-line like crazy right now.
Yeah, it's
you don't want to be in that spot. Yeah,
not pretty. So you want to try to set. It takes us back to the Jack Sawyer conversation. You don't want to have to be penciled in. Okay, 2nd round, we got to get an outside linebacker. We got to get an edge.
You don't know what next year's class is.
What if there's nobody available?
Yeah. You don't know what next year's class
I'm not going to take one in the 3rd round or in the 2nd round who's I get a 4th round grade on just because I have a need.
Right.
That's where you run into problems.
But it still might make sense because that guy's going to play a lot more snaps because you got to put 11 dudes out there and one of them's got to be your guard or whatever.
But when the opportunity presents itself, you take the guy.
You have to do it ahead of time, ideally.
Yeah, I think you got to know what your roster is and where you need to what you can fill, and then take care of as much of it as you can ahead of time.
Yeah,
and then you're not concerned. Then you're the 49ers, for example, lost much like the Steelers this year. Lost a bunch of guys in free agency.
Kind of by design. But
by design because they had people lined up waiting in the wings.
The Eagles are really good at that too.
Yeah.
I mean, Kelsey's replacement, they draft a year early, that kind of thing.
And
it helps when you're good, though.
It's also the beauty of playing the comp pick game.
That's the beauty.
Because you get extra picks.
I get an extra pick.
You got extra ammunition with which to do it.
Yeah. I'm probably going to lose that guy, but I'll get a comp pick for him. But I got a comp pick last year because I let his buddy leave, and I'm drafting his replacement now.
Steelers might take 2 cornerbacks next year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's the way it goes. And it really hurts the teams that have a lot of turnover in the front office and coaching staffs, too, because I don't really like half the guys I just inherited. It's not like, well, I've been grooming this guy for 3 years in a row, and now I don't know what to do with him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard.
It's definitely a puzzle that you have to put together on a consistent basis and keep building. That's why, beyond what happened on the field, that Deshaun Watson trade set the Browns back years. Because they didn't have day 2 picks at all.
So I'll sign super dated, but in my recruiting days with Pitt, I always had a spreadsheet where we know when guys are graduating. It's not like, oh, he's going to transfer. It's like, boy, we got a tackle here, and then we got 2 years where we really don't have any. We better try to get a JC kid in here this year because you can recruit them down here, but they're not going to be ready to start in the Big East then as an 18-year-old tackle. You knew your depth chart when they were graduating, when they were leaving. And, yeah, there's a Larry here and there that you lose, but you're happy at Larry. This type of things. But
so different now.
So different. I can't even imagine how you prepare for years ahead.
Yeah.
You steal someone off a lesser team, I guess. You take Duquesne's best player or whatever,
Welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it's a lovely Wednesday outside here in Pittsburgh.
Sort of. It's nice right now. Yeah.
Last night, a storm rolled through here, knocked the lights out. We are actually in a studio here that actually has power.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else in the building out.
Yeah. I walked in and something's beeping, and I went to use the drinking fountain. That doesn't work. I guess that's via electricity. I didn't put 2 and 2 together on that. And then you broke my heart, and you're like, I don't think you can make a coffee either. I'm like, whoa.
Matt always drinks about 2 to 3 cups of coffee during
It's always
the
the
show.
same. There's one full one, and then it gets almost to the end, and then I top it off, and then I go to water at the end. You know? Yep. Now my system's all
That's
messed
why he keeps
up.
himself hyped up.
I know. And I degenerate it. And to really pull back the curtain, last night's the first night I didn't sleep with my CPAP for like years. And I'm tired as could be. I'm like, I can't wait for that coffee. Heartbreaker. The day that it couldn't be there because we didn't have power all night. We could power back. Came back at noon today.
It came rolling through by my house really bad, but we never lost electricity or anything.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of trees down.
But I texted you last. I knew somebody was coming home from the South Hills. He had done a baseball game up there. He'd umpired a baseball game, and he was telling me it was really bad.
It was, yeah.
All the lights were out and everything, and I'm like, well, we didn't get hit quite that hard. We got hit, but not anything like that. And then I texted you later in the night, and you didn't get back to me. I'm like, oh, I'll bet Matt's
my phone was a paperweight for a while there until about noon today. Yeah. And what's crazy is for whatever reason in our house, we don't get good cell service unless we use the internet. Yeah. So my kids were losing their minds. They were just going anywhere that had,
that's like going back to the old days when.
Oh yeah, they're like, I forget what my son was saying. He's something like, this is like the 1800s here. I'm like, not quite. You still are fiddling on your iPad, but it's a little.
In regards to that, so I've been doing this a long time, and a friend of mine from college got a job in Jacksonville one year.
Okay,
and we were talking. He came to Pittsburgh about a month ago, and we were talking. I met him before he flew back to Boston, and we were talking about it. He goes, remember the time we met in Jacksonville? And there were no cell phones at the time.
Right.
And somehow we figured out exactly where to meet in Jacksonville without cell phones. And we didn't miss each other.
Yeah.
Like,
that's how it used to be.
I was telling my daughters about that. I'm like, okay. He's like, they couldn't figure out how to meet their friends without their cell phones.
Oh, I know. I mean, like everybody, we would be on our corded phone in the kitchen. All right, I called Jeff, you called Jason, we'll meet here, and then someone's 10 minutes late, but who knows, or, somehow we all made it work.
Yeah. Different era.
You call him, I'll call him. Okay, well, just to get together for dinner.
So I bring that up because it's funny. I was chatting with, I'm working on a story on Derek Harmon,
Yeah, pretty
Steelers'
cool.
first-round draft pick. I talked to his high school coach today, and his high school coach got hired. He had a couple coaches, but the guy he had his senior year got hired the week before the season
That's
started.
who you talked to today.
That's who I talked to
Yeah.
today. And he was telling me that he's like, because I asked him, I said, was that when COVID hit? Because it was, in that time frame. He goes, funny you mention that. He goes, I got hired on a Monday. Wednesday we had a first team meeting. Friday everything shut down because of COVID.
Wow.
And
he
like,
doesn't know any of the dudes.
He said, I don't know anybody there. He said, and he told me, he said, Derek Harmon was like a coach with that team. He says he organized all the Zoom calls, set them up, made sure everybody was on them.
Yeah.
Just took care of
This is new
a lot
for
of that
everybody,
stuff.
and these kids are 16, 17, 18 years old, looking up to him, I assume.
And
too.
it was a private school, so it wasn't like it was a neighborhood situation.
Okay.
He went to an all-boys school in Detroit.
So a lot of them are from distance.
They're all, they're not all in the same neighborhood where you can run next door to Jimmy's house. Say, hey, Jimmy, get on the Zoom call.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
Said he was like another coach with that. He said he's a great leader.
Yeah, I've gotten that impression. Super well organized. All the stuff with his family and his mom. Really being on top of that situation.
Said he's highly focused and because of that situation, and just highly focused, highly motivated, and just a great leader.
And Mike Pursuta was telling stories about him right after they drafted him too. Going back to the Michigan State stuff, Pursuta, Michigan State, that with a lot of his NIL money, he was getting really put it towards his mother. What I mean, like towards vehicles so that she could use and that kind of stuff. He wasn't buying Lamborghinis and stupid stuff. Right.
He wasn't Carson Becking it up.
Right.
No, he wasn't making Carson Beck money
You
either.
have enough, do what you want. Right. No, but he sounds like a great human.
Yeah. So just interesting how just some of the. We even talked about the recruiting process. I'm like, what was that recruiting process like during COVID?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it was interesting because if schools from out of state couldn't come in, they couldn't fly in and visit with the player.
Sure.
And so he's like, I had to send out tapes and everything to all these other schools to get to drum up the interest because
they're not going to. So to pull back the curtain, like at least in my day, which was a long time ago, but I'm sure it's pretty similar. Our D-line coach did Whippeals, did local. I mean, our tight end coach had New Jersey. Like you had these territories where you really built relationships, and you'd go into high schools even if they didn't have a kid because you just wanted to see the coach and because they're going to have a kid.
See
next
what's coming
time
in the pipeline.
Right. Maybe you ask about an opponent that you're recruiting or whatever. But the big schools you hit all the time, and you really develop a relationship with the people in the building. And none of that could have existed.
Couldn't do it.
Right.
Couldn't do it.
Huh.
I mean, especially if, you couldn't even go out of, like, you couldn't get into some of these states.
Oh, I bet.
Like if you're Iowa and you're recruiting somebody in Michigan, you couldn't get there.
You couldn't get there at all. Yeah. And I didn't know what a Zoom was before that.
Nor did I.
I remember we were coming home from the combine that year, and they were like, made jokes about Corona, the beer. I'm like, what's that?
That was the first time I saw somebody in a mask.
Yeah, me too.
I was walking over to the mall, the Center City Mall or whatever it's called, the Circle
Probably like
Mall.
our last day there or whatever.
And somebody was walking through, there's a mask. I'm like, oh, that's weird.
That's strange, yeah. I remember hearing Phillip Rivers is going to be a Colt and figured out what the coronavirus was that time as we were leaving.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Steelers, again, will have their rookie mini camp next weekend, so they'll get an opportunity to get hands-on this rookie draft class. They'll also have their tryouts. Every team has some guys they bring in for tryouts.
People don't realize that. It is kind of almost like a high school, college situation where you just bring dudes in, try them out, and sometimes you find somebody.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, a camp body. Or,
they've gotten Terrence Garvin out of that, for example.
Okay. I would say, is there any names you knew of that stuck?
Who actually made the team, coming out of that. So, you do find some guys that slip through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think
that happens before the minicamp.
Yes, that happens during the rookie minicamp.
Okay.
They just bring because you don't for rookie minicamp you bring in your draft picks, you bring in your undrafted free agent guys.
Yeah,
you can bring in some first year players
from rookies from the year before.
But I think I don't know.
There's some specification.
There's a specification on like typically not draft picks. Guys that have played, I think if they've been on the active roster.
The first round pick's not going to be there.
Yeah, if they've been on the active roster for a certain number, they can't do this. So, I mean, if you just did it out of that, your draft class, your undrafted guys, and 5 or 6 guys that you can bring in, you wouldn't have much of a camp.
It's not going to be 11 on 11. That's for
no,
sure. Right,
you have
right.
25 guys there, and you'd be like, okay, what are we going to do here now? So you bring in these undrafted guys
to field some semblance of a team.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this off the air yesterday. Like, well, what if they didn't draft a quarterback? Well, you need a quarterback at these things.
Right.
At least one, probably 2. So they're definitely going to have another, not even a camp arm, a mini camp arm.
A rookie mini camp arm.
Right. So probably somebody local.
And for that guy,
it's something.
You might keep him around. I think I saw it was a quarterback from New Hampshire, Mount Lebanon guy. For him, you might keep him around just because.
Just because, right?
Hey, let's keep a fourth arm around until Aaron Rodgers signs.
Specialist could be the same way or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like you got a leg up over whoever else,
right?
And at least you do something.
You play that position.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I did want to make some clarification here. Yesterday, I misspoke with the situation with Nick Herbig's contract. He just finished year 2. I don't know. For some reason, I had it in my head it was year 3.
I was thinking about that too. It was like that's 2 years down the road that could be the situation.
Right.
They're not going to lose him next
No,
offseason.
He's here for next season,
which is big.
Yeah,
I remember talking through him like, boy, that seems quick, but things happen quick in this league. I guess I missed
we did
it,
a lot of radio in a lot of hours over the last 5 or 6 days, and everything starts to bang around in your head. I completely misspoke on that, but
only 1 year difference. But right,
yeah,
they do have them for
but
the next 2.
The fact remains, you still needed that fourth.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's still a logical acquisition, and the style of outside linebacker edge guy they got is a lot different than Herbig too. But maybe by that 2-year stretch, he's Sawyer's a starter, or who knows? You know what I mean? A lot can change.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Right, right.
They, think about it this way. What if, when the injury situation happened with Ryan Shazier, where they had Stephon Tuitt retire,
right,
unexpectedly, they had already had that guy in place,
right? I mean, that's the ideal way,
as opposed to
it.
waiting to do it. Like I think they've done a really good job. I think of building depth across the board. Like you think about the inside linebacker position.
No doubt, safety.
Right? Some of these spots where you're like, oh, did they really need that? And then all of a sudden, look at it, well, okay, I guess those things happen.
Oh yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, we can be real critical of draft classes and whatnot, but they only give you 7 picks to start. I mean, you really have to allocate where you're going with these. I mean, is a backup outside linebacker more important than a guard? Could be, I mean, and you want to keep a strength, and obviously it depends who's there on the board and all those things too. But it's hard to have a succession plan. It's not like the olden days with the Steelers where pre-free agency or James Harrison's waiting in the wings. I mean, that's really hard to pull off nowadays because you really don't have these guys as long or develop them as well. You
don't have as many practices.
You don't have many practices, right?
And free agency hits, and somebody's going to offer them something. I just look at, there were people on the message board. Oh, I can't. You guys are praising them for signing Robert Woods. It's depth. We were
praising them, but
we said it's
fine. Right.
It's a no risk move.
Right.
What's the loss there? What's the
it's not a
downside?
Big signing bonus. You didn't have to cut somebody to sign him.
You give him $2 million. That doesn't even guarantee he makes the team.
I say he might not make the team. There's a chance. I mean, I think you sign him with the intentions that he's going to be a contributor. But if it doesn't work out,
I'm not saying this is a guy that puts you over the top.
No, I don't think it's AB or Lynn Swann.
But if you lose George Pickens in the middle of the season or something, you'll be glad you had him.
Right.
It's
not a huge move, but it's worth discussing.
Yeah. I guess we're not supposed to talk about those things.
Yeah.
It's like Fight Club. Anyways,
we'll just talk about the Grail all the time.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. Let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Some interesting moves going on around the league with the 5th-year option stuff. I wanted to talk about that next when we come back. He's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, we've talked about this when over the last couple of months here, and it turned out to be the case. And it was an interesting case here. The Ravens today, I think by the end of the week, teams have to announce the fifth-round option stuff for the guys who were taken in the 2022 draft.
Okay, that's a Kenny Pickett year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ravens announcing today they will pick up the fifth-year option on safety
Cal Hamilton. Okay. I haven't seen any of this yet. Yeah.
They're not going to pick it up on center Tyler Linderbaum.
Which we've talked about this before, but is not an indictment on the player. It's kind of an indictment on the system.
And yet, that's what people look at. Well, you didn't pick up his fifth-year option. You must not like the player.
Right. I mean, the Steelers didn't pick up Edmonds and Najee recently, but because it wasn't worth it. I mean, for those particular positions in particular. And Linderbaum, to me, is easily a top 5 center. They're happy with him. They like him. He's a good player. But you got to pay him like a tackle. Yeah, and that's
they would have to pay him $23.4 million if they pick up that fifth-year option.
Wow.
Fully guaranteed.
The
moment you offer that, not only is next year guaranteed, you're essentially guaranteeing this year as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. The timing's always so goofy on it, too. I mean, you got to kind of have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
Now, I think you mentioned off the air that they're planning on having contract
discussions. They would like to have contract discussions with him, but if I'm him, I'm like, well, I could have had $23.4 million.
Right.
The top centers are making $17, $18 million.
Mm-hmm.
I want 20 plus.
I'm coming in at 20 then.
Yeah.
You know, like I guess no one's giving you 23, but you would hit the open market a year from now.
In
what this situation,
this year was a bad center draft.
Very.
So
great one 2 years ago.
Yeah, nobody's getting centers necessarily out of this draft. There may be some that happen.
Zabel or who knows, right? Yeah.
But it wasn't a great center draft, so nobody's going to. If you had a center need,
there's more seats at the table.
You're
going to
still have a center need next year
filled.
too.
Yeah. That's a great point because, if there's 32 good ones, and there really is probably 25, then maybe one team finds one this year, or maybe two. Where last year there was like 6 or 7 in the Frazier draft.
Yeah,
and then someone's going to retire, someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to, there's going to be more seats opening than filling.
So looking at this, the guys who've been picked up already.
Looks like we have lights on out there.
Yeah, how about that?
I'm going to make some coffee after this segment.
The Jaguars are picking up the option on number 1 overall pick, Trayvon Walker.
Okay. People probably think that's a debatable one. He's been a real good player.
He had a good year last year.
He's not as good as Hutchinson. That's really his crime, is he's not as good as Hutchinson.
And then Tyler said, let there be
light.
Let
there be light. Boom. And there it was.
Aiden Hutchinson, okay.
Easy one,
yeah.
Right.
But the difference there, Trayvon Walker's got there are 4 levels at which you pick these things up.
It can be confusing, but it's really important to know this.
It's basic, play time, guys who've made 1 Pro Bowl, and guys who've made multiple Pro Bowls.
I assume Hutchinson's made multiple.
He's only made 1.
I guess he wouldn't have went last year because of the injury, right?
Basic is for guys who do not meet any of the requirements to be eligible for 50-year base salary calculated the average. They still get the average from the 3rd to 25th highest salaries at their position over the last 5 seasons.
And, for example, O-line is just O-line. That's all the tackles and right.
The playtime one, they get the 50-year option if they've played 75% or greater of their snaps in 2 of their first 3 seasons, or an average of 75% or greater over the course of all 3 seasons, or 50% over the entirety of it.
Okay.
So you got to be at least a 50% player.
Yeah, you got to be on the field.
Yeah. And those guys get the average from the 3rd to 20th highest paid players at their position.
Okay. I mean, so that's a nice chunk. Yeah. I assume Hutchinson's pricier than Walker.
Yes,
that's
where I was going with this.
Same position. Okay.
If you've made 1 Pro Bowl on the original ballot, not as an alternate.
Oh,
so
good.
They do designate that.
Huntley didn't count.
You get the equal of the transition tag.
Oh, wow.
Which is top.
That's good money.
Yeah. And if you've been to multiple Pro Bowls, you get the franchise tag tender.
Really? Okay. Wow. That seems high. I mean, that's why it's so high.
That's why you see guys that
there's just less 5th-year options picked up than people think or used to for this CBA.
So the difference between Walker on a play time, they play the same position, Walker and Hutchinson. They're both edge rushers.
Ends,
yeah. Walker's going to get his 5th-year option is $14.75 million.
Okay, so that's not a bad pickup for
Yeah.
him. He's young. You want to keep him, right?
Had 10 sacks last year.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Hutchinson's fifth-year option, $20.8 million.
Wow.
He makes $6 million more because he
Wow.
made a Pro Bowl.
And he's coming. I mean, it's an easy one, but he's coming off a major injury,
Yeah.
and he was great when he was healthy. But that's a pretty pricey jump for a rookie.
Sauce Gardner, the
And
third.
again, guaranteed, folks.
Yeah. Sauce Gardner was the third overall pick. He gets the multiple Pro Bowl. So for a cornerback, it's $20.2 million, basically. 20.18.
These guys are 20 plus.
Yeah. Kayvon Thibodeau was the third overall pick.
Did they pick his up?
They picked his up.
Okay. I thought they announced that.
Again, he gets that 14.75. I can Ekawanu as a offensive lineman, even though it's just the playtime option, $17.56 million.
Yeah. And that probably wasn't a simple, easy decision.
This is the decision the Steelers are going to have to make after this season on Broderick Jones.
Yeah. And Icky started slow, and now they're happy enough with him.
Yeah.
But they're not like out of the woods. He's
Right.
phenomenal. Right.
Jones is going to have the play. He'll have the play time.
Oh, look at this guy.
Look at him. Look at Tyler. Tyler Vittmeyer making a rare on-camera appearance there,
Oh, well worth it.
getting Matt Coffey. So $17.56 million, and
The
it's
show
going.
will go much better. Too,
It will go up next year when the Steelers
it's only going to go up, yeah.
have to make that decision on Broderick Jones. Evan Neal,
That's a no, I'm sure.
who the Giants didn't take the fifth-year option, just the basic fifth-year option on an offensive lineman, $16.68 million.
That's an easy no, though.
Yeah.
Would you consider trading for him for like nothing? He's been bad.
He's been terrible.
He's been terrible. Like that's an easy decision for the
I don't know what he'd be
Giants.
worth. And
I mean, like a 6-round pick.
somebody would have to
And then you only get him for a year.
somebody would have to be a disaster at one of your two tackle positions.
Yeah.
So no.
Right,
That would be
right.
my
I just like
answer on that.
reclamation projects, but I didn't love him coming out of Bama.
Yeah. Drake London got his picked up at $16.8 million.
Okay.
That's
That's a good deal for him.
That's the
right.
play time.
Yeah.
Charles Cross.
So he has not gone to a Pro Bowl.
No.
London. Okay.
Charles Cross with the Seahawks, $17.5 million.
Okay.
For an
Solid left
for an
tackle.
offensive
but
tackle.
I would say he's better than
That's-
Icky, but
That's the play time option.
okay.
Chris Olave with the Saints. He only qualifies for the basic because he's missed some time.
He's missed some time, yeah. And receivers are tough to get to the Pro Bowl.
It's still
Elected.
$15.5 million.
Yeah, but that's very worth it. I mean, that was an easy decision. They don't have money, but
Yeah. Jamison Williams had his picked up, $15.5 million, basic play time.
I think that was somewhat questioned.
Some
but
of that was by his own.
the
I mean,
playtime stuff.
He's been
right.
suspended for about 15 games.
Yeah.
More than that. He got his whole season, right?
Whole season, I think, or at least the majority of them.
Majority of it. The Eagles surprisingly picked up Jordan Davis's fifth-year option.
That one shocks me.
Here's the thing, though. At defensive tackle, they
He
list
hasn't gone to a Pro
interior
Bowl.
defensive line is different than defensive.
But interior O-line isn't.
Right.
Which is a flaw in the system.
It's only $12.9 million. So at that price,
yeah,
you pick it
right,
up.
Right. One
Now-
more year of a young player. You hope he's
Yeah.
developing.
If you're the Steelers, you hope that Derek Harmon gets more than just the basic.
you hope he's been to every Pro Bowl.
I hope he's
right. Yeah,
at the very least he better get the play time.
Yeah.
You know,
So
but
he didn't.
he didn't
get
hit the play time because he
play
barely
time.
played. You
No,
know,
so he's a part-time
he's not a
player.
high snap
Never been a
guy.
high snap guy, right?
But $12.9 million for a guy who's plays less than 50% of the snaps.
Okay. So I guess that's a pretty easy one to pick up.
It would have been 14.3 for the play time, 20.8 for one Pro Bowl, 25.1 if you've made multiple Pro Bowls
Okay, at D tackle,
at D tackle.
which is what you're hoping.
Pretty significant
Yeah,
difference.
And by then it'll be 30.
It just tells you that the big time defensive tackles are getting paid a lot of money, but it falls off pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's exactly like linebackers like that too.
Hamilton, same thing here, but he's been to multiple Pro Bowls, so he gets $18.6 million.
That's a big safety salary.
If he just had the basic, it was 9.2, so half.
Wow. Yeah, doubles just for that. Okay. Interesting.
Kenyon Green, the
No.
Eagles did not pick him up,
Yeah.
nor did they pick up Jahan Dotson, the next guy. They've got three first-round guys from this, including Jordan
Yeah,
Davis.
because they traded for Green.
They traded for Green.
Pickett. 3 teams had to decide on him, kind of.
Green's fifth-year option would have been $16.68 million. They decided not to pick that up.
Okay. So that he's really a 1-year rental for them
Yeah.
in that trade.
Jahan Dotson has hit the playtime numbers.
Mm-hmm.
His number would have been 16.8. They're not picking
I'm sure
that
they're
up.
not picking that up. Right.
The Chargers haven't made a decision yet on Zion Johnson.
I would say I thought he was like as safe a prospect as you could get, and he hasn't been that safe.
He's also a guard.
Yeah, I bet's a no.
$17.56 million for the playtime option.
There's a lot of other interior options.
It's a lot of money for a guard.
Back then. I bet he won't pick it up.
Treylon Burks,
definitely not
with the Titans, $15.493. They haven't picked that up yet.
Okay.
Trevor Penning with the Saints. They had 2 first-round draft picks that year. His would have been he would be the basic at 16.685. They haven't picked that up.
No, I mean, they drafted a tackle 2 years in a row now.
Kenny Pickett now with the Browns.
Kind of funny.
They didn't know when they traded for him.
I know. I heard that
they had to make a decision on his 5th-year option.
Mm-hmm. He's their property when the deadline hits.
Yeah.
It's not the Eagles' job.
The basic 5th-year option for him would have been $22.1 million.
Okay.
The playtime option would have been $25.3. The one Pro Bowl option would have been $35.37.
Wow.
And if you've been to multiple Pro Bowls, $40.24.
Okay. So like Jaden Daniels, I think, has already gone to a Pro Bowl.
Right.
In 1 year, he'll probably go to multiple.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be
Which is why if
you've
got a quarterback like that on the 5th-year option, you probably want to rework you can do that after the 3rd year.
That's why teams do it early.
Yeah, you can get that out of the way and just say, okay, we're not even going to mess with that.
Because, I mean, plus you can get injured, and I don't love the guaranteed part of it.
Trent McDuffie, they picked that one up.
Okay.
Those last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys haven't been picked up.
There's a big stretch there weren't.
Trent McDuffie with Kansas City, 13.6, they've picked that up.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
So he has not been to a Pro Bowl.
That's a playtime, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Quay Walker with the Packers.
That'll be a no.
His would be 14.75 for it being an off-ball linebacker. He would get the playtime, and they haven't picked that up yet.
No, I'd say Cooper's gone past him too.
Kyer Elam now with the Cowboys. Got drafted by Buffalo.
Their job, yeah, I'm sure they won't.
He hasn't even qualified for the playtime yet. He's 12.68.
Yeah,
they're not going to pick that up.
Problematic.
Tyler Smith, they are picking that one up, but it's $21.27 million.
So it'd be the same as Linderbaum, I bet.
Linderbaum's actually more because Tyron Smith has only been to one Pro Bowl.
Linderbaum's a multiple guy? Okay.
Yeah, Linderbaum has been to multiple Pro Bowls, so he gets 23.4, and they have not picked that up.
On Linderbaum. But
and they're not going to.
Yes, right, okay.
Yeah. Jermaine Johnson with the Jets.
I wonder what they do in that one. They really liked him, then he got hurt.
They picked it up.
Okay.
It's 13.4. He hasn't hit the playtime.
Yeah, I guess
it's just
not.
the basic.
Yeah. He also missed all last year.
Yeah. Devin Lloyd was another one with the Jaguars today. They're not picking it up.
Really? I think he's a really underraid player. I'm not saying he's a superstar, but I think he's an underrated
He's hit the playtime
I'm sure.
Numbers on that, so it's 14.75. The Packers with Devontae Wyatt.
That's got to be a no.
They're picking it up.
Really?
Yeah. He's hit. It's the basic. And
it's probably the same as Jordan Davis.
13.92, yeah.
Okay. I guess it's not that expensive then.
And then you got Cole Strange with the Patriots.
Is that a no?
They've not picked it up. It's 16.68.
I'm sure that's the bottom rung.
Yeah.
But it's still O-line money.
The Chiefs have picked up George Karlaftis at 15.196.
These defensive ends aren't too bad.
Yeah. And then Dax Hill. The Bengals are picking up.
That's an interesting one.
They're picking up Dax Hill, and they're calling him a cornerback.
I think that's what he is now, but he was a safety then.
Yeah, it's $12.68 million.
Okay.
And that's
just
how
you do that.
That's just the basic.
If you position change or you're in the midst of a position change, is it like go to a committee and they improve it or not? Or I don't know.
I think maybe it depends on how much, the number of snaps that you've played.
Yeah, where you
position.
lined up. Okay,
yeah.
Makes sense.
So
but he is a corner now.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least 12 guys there that haven't been picked up, and including Tyler Linderbaum.
And that's a pretty good draft class too. I mean, some of the better players like the Londons and Olaves don't cost you too much because they didn't hit Pro Bowls, so they were pretty easy decisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you got multiple first-round draft picks, that's tough.
Oh, it is. So Broderick Jones' decision comes 1 year from now. Okay. Boy, that stuff happens quick too because you really got to get ahead of it.
He hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet.
Right.
But he will get the play time.
He'll get the play time for sure.
Yeah.
He won't be the cheapest one. That's what I was thinking.
And if he makes a Pro Bowl this year, then it goes up.
He can't go to multiple, but he could either be tier 2 or 3.
Yeah, he's going to be tier 2 or 3 guy. And right now, if you're looking at tier 2 or 3, you're looking at $17.56 million for the play time. And you're looking
over 20 probably for the Pro
You're
Bowl.
looking at 21.27 for if he makes a Pro Bowl. Now, if he makes a Pro Bowl, you're happy.
Right. I mean, you'd gladly give him that money, and it'll be even more than that.
Especially if he's your starting left tackle.
That's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
If he's the Pro Bowl starting left tackle for the AFC, okay, you pick it up.
Yeah, right. He had a great year.
If it's similar, that's a tough decision.
Yeah. But that
comes quick.
Not all that different money than what Dan Moore signed for.
No, exactly. I mean, he's 20-ish.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, when you're relatively speaking.
If you got to pick up
if Jones is still ascending.
Jones is probably it's 17.5 for just the basic playtime offensive line.
Mm-hmm. Which is likely what he'll.
Yeah, that's probably what he's going to get.
Probably the decision.
17.56. Let's say next year.
Maybe it's 18.5.
Yeah,
something, right?
18.5. Dan Moore just signed for 21.
Who would rather have?
It's not that.
But still, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's why you always draft tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, draft linemen because they're really hard to pay.
And that edge rusher.
They're hard to find.
The guys that took edge rushers in the first round this year, you got Myles Garrett's contract.
Oh, yeah. They've spiked. Like Parsons hasn't even signed yet.
You're going to have Parsons signing a new deal.
Right. Watt's going to sign a new deal.
Maybe Hutchinson gets a new deal. Maybe, Watt gets a new deal. It might be
inflation 30, at that
It
position.
Might be 35.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good point. I would say, what positions jumped heavily this offseason?
That's one.
Garrett really threw things out.
I mean, Crosby got money.
Yeah, Crosby was another one, right? Yeah, it's going to get real pricey.
I mean, you get top 5 money at that position. If you make multiple Pro Bowls and you get the franchise tag value at edge rusher, yikes.
Yeah. I was thinking about receiver, too. Jamar Chase signed a big deal. I mean, he was an easy fifth-year pickup at the time, but, man, I mean, it's not that team-friendly.
It really isn't.
I mean, it really isn't.
Yeah, and
you'd rather negotiate beforehand. Like, if you can get a deal done with Roger Jones now, do it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the Steelers are going to do that.
Right.
But, because you want to see I want him to be motivated going into
I want more
year.
info on him. I mean, I want to see him as the left tackle for 17 games.
Right.
But
if you're like looking at, for the Seahawks with Charles Cross isn't a superstar left tackle.
But they're happy with him.
They're happy with him, and they pick up the option at 17.56.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be where you're going to be at with Broderick Jones.
And they're probably happy with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas you look at like Trevor Penning, and they didn't pick that up, and it's like, okay, I get it. He's not even a starter.
No. I mean, he's drafted tackle second year in a row.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll be a starting guard or play at all for them.
Yeah. So it's an interesting puzzle.
It is an interesting puzzle.
You have to keep looking at it,
but at least it's on the horizon. GMs can plan for it.
Right.
You got this decision, and you have a ballpark what he's going to make.
In that regard, though, and there were no running backs on this list.
Mm-hmm.
The running back numbers for the fifth-year option isn't outrageous.
I remember it wasn't crazy.
The only problem with it is when you make that offer to the running back after his third season, you're guaranteeing the fourth year, fully guaranteeing the fourth year and the fifth year.
Right. I mean, that's
at a wear and tear position.
I mean, I thought Najee at the time was an easy pickup, and then when they didn't, I understood it better and realized
once
it was
you thought
an easy
it out,
decline. It was an easy decline.
Yeah.
It was not because he's a bad player. It's just I don't want to guarantee 2 years.
Fully guarantee 2 years to a running back that's not
that at that point and never miss time, runs as hard as possible. I mean, destined to get banged up, and he hasn't, to his credit, which is pretty incredible. But man,
and I say that because if the Steelers hadn't taken, if Derek Harmon had been gone before their pick,
if that's Hampton or Henderson or whatever, right?
Omarion Hampton or Travion Henderson would have been a Steeler. That was going to be their pick, not a quarterback. They were taking one of those two running backs.
Okay. I know they liked them both a lot, and I would understand it, but that's a tough decision.
Yeah.
I mean, you would hope at that point they hit a Pro Bowl too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're using a first-round pick on a running back, you'd hope they'd be in the Pro Bowl.
Well, and Najee had, so that was...
Yeah, it skewed it a little bit too. It didn't help his cause.
Well, I guess he wouldn't have been voted as a starter to the Pro, or...
Oh, he would have been a tier 2
I think
guy.
he might have been like first alternate or something like that.
Clearly had the playing time.
Yeah, clearly had the play time, but would have been expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turned out...
That's when you draft one in the third round.
I mentioned... we got over-unders here now that the draft is completed here. So let's roll through these here. I'm looking at BetMGM's over-under totals for each team. They're in alphabetical order. The Arizona Cardinals, over-under is 8.5. You get plus 100 at over 8, minus 120 at under 8.5.
Defense got a lot better. I like coaching staff. I'd probably lean towards over, but I mean, it's not a strong feeling.
One thing to remember is that I believe the NFC West teams this year match up against the AFC South and the NFC South.
Well, along those lines,
games.
I was just double checking because I mentioned Warren Sharp takes these and turns them into strength of schedule too. The Niners have by far the easiest schedule in the league, which makes me think that whole division probably has it pretty good.
They've got it pretty good. They're playing.
Yeah.
They're playing both
Arizona's
Souths.
11th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The Falcons, who we just talked about, over 7.5 is -145. So people are hammering the over on that.
That does seem low.
Under is +120 on under 7.5.
So I used to pay a lot of attention to these, and I still do. But there used to be some that weren't halves. I mean, like you could push, or it was a lot easier then. It's like if it was 8, it was like, what's the chance? I could see 9 wins much easier than I could see 7 wins. But now that all of them are half, I can't believe it took Vegas that long.
Yeah.
I got to think over.
I think.
I worry I'm going to have too many overs because it's just the most optimistic time of the year and only bad stuff's going to happen, as we always say, But if they don't get over, do you think they're in trouble?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why you trade next.
At least
first,
the GM is.
Right,
yeah.
right.
The Ravens are 11.5, -115 to go over that, -105 to go under that.
It's a big number.
It's
I'd probably
huge
go
number.
under. I'd probably go under.
Yeah.
I mean, division's tough.
You win 11
First place
games.
schedule, yeah.
11 wins is a lot.
12 to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
The Bills are also 11.5. Now, the caveat here is that the Bills division
Easier.
got a lot easier.
Got a lot easier, yeah.
But they're -150 to over, +125 to go under that 11.5. So
I lean towards unders on all those teams.
people
that
are
in that
hammering
neighborhood.
the over on the Bills.
Optimistic fan base. They signed Elijah Moore today, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we talked about that with a weird UFA thing.
The Panthers over under 6.5, -115 over that, -115 under that. Nobody cares about the Panthers.
Nobody cares if nobody's betting them.
Nobody's betting it.
I'd probably lean towards under. But they're one of those teams that are 6.5 or 5.5.
Yeah.
At the worst.
The Bears are 8.5. It's +110 to the over, -135 to the under.
Are we a little too optimistic with them?
Always.
I always, right. I mean, it's good fan base. I'm sure that bets it up.
Ridiculously tough division.
Really tough division. I know he's now in his second year, but I love betting against rookie coach, rookie quarterback combination.
Like 2 and 4 in the division.
Oh, you'd probably take that. I mean,
Yeah.
3 and 3, you'd take it.
3
if I
and
were
3,
them.
you'd absolutely take.
Right. It could easily be 1 and 5.
Yeah.
That's a great way of looking at it too. I always think that way first. Like, yeah, but how many getting in the division? Okay, if you can get 3, all right. Well, that's part of the way there, but it's not that much help,
Yeah. The Bengals over under is 9.5. It's -150 to the over, +125 to the under.
They had some bad luck last year, but
they've also won 9 games in each of the last 2 years.
Have they?
There've been 9 and 8 the last 2 years.
I thought they were well below that last year. Okay, I would go under because I don't think there's enough change. I mean, what's so much different?
Yeah,
right.
I hear you. The Browns over under.
They're low, yeah.
4.5.
Oh wow, that's different than the one I saw.
-165 to the over, +140
That
to
must
the
be
under.
the lowest.
Yeah,
because I didn't see any that were under
4.5 is
5.5.
low.
They must have been bet heavy from 5.5 down to 4.5. That's a
Well,
big
it looks
swing.
like people are now betting the over on that.
They must hit the under heavy at 5.5.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
The Cowboys, 7.5. -120 to the over, +100 to the under.
They're really short on playmakers. I mean, the line and Dak can make up for it, but man, who's carrying the ball and who's catching the ball?
Javonte Williams.
I think Williams is probably the lead back.
Yeah. Denver, 9.5. +105 to the over, -125 to the under.
Pretty tough division.
Plexiglass theory there?
And say, how much faith do we have in Knicks to really be a 10 double-digit win type guy? I'd probably go under.
Detroit, over 10.5. -105 to the over, -115 to the under.
I thought that number would be bigger, and I was going to go under. 10.5 seems
10.5
about right. But
yeah.
that division's rough.
It's rough, but
I mean, no one's going to go 6-0 in that division.
the Packers are 9.5. -110 to the over, -110 to the under.
I would lean towards the over, I think. I think he's a solid coach.
Going to keep the playmakers healthy.
That's a problem.
Houston. Over-under is 9.5, plus 110 to the over, minus 130 to the under. So
it might be one of my favorites so far.
The under's getting bet.
I think I'd hit the over. I think that division's pretty bad. I could see 5 wins in the division.
Well, the Colts and Jaguars are up next year. So the Colts are over 7.5, or their 7.5 is the number, minus 110 to the over, minus 110 to the under.
Could his seat be hot if they go noticeably under with bad quarterbacks? In Indy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's could be, but what was the Jags?
Haven't gotten.
Oh, okay. I thought you said them both. I'm sorry.
Well, they're right next to each other.
Yeah,
the next two teams on here.
I'd probably go. The Colts number's pretty good. They're always hovering around there.
Jacksonville is also 7.5. It's minus 120 to the over, so that's getting bet. Plus 100 to the under.
I'm a Lawrence believer, but I think it's more likely to get 7 wins than 8. Those are both good numbers.
Yeah.
This game's tough.
Kansas City, 11.5. Plus 100 to the over, minus 120 to the under.
Oh, I assume they play the Ravens and Bill. I mean, they're all first-place teams.
Same thing as last year,
right.
yeah.
And the division's hard. I'd probably go under. I have a hard time going the big numbers going over.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Because one injury, quarterback gets hurt and you're done.
Even if it's 2 weeks, you lose Mahomes.
Yeah.
You know.
The Raiders, 6.5.
I was a little shocked they were lumped with the real bad team.
Minus 150 to the over, so apparently all the bettors are as well.
Yeah.
Plus 125 to the under.
They got a coach and quarterback. I would lean towards the over.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like it
you get
pays
Jenny,
well,
too.
Yeah, right.
Should have an offense now, an offensive identity.
The offense might be quite good.
The Chargers, this might be the only fly in the ointment, is that the division is also
It's tough, right?
It's tough.
They're definitely 4th in the division.
Yeah. Chargers is 9.5. Minus 110 to the over, minus 110 to the under.
I don't like betting against that coach-quarterback combination, but I don't think they've gotten better. I don't like their offseason much at all. They had a ton of cap space. They didn't do that much with it.
The Rams is 9.5. Minus 150 to the over, plus 125 to the under. This goes to what we were talking about.
Easy schedule. I think I'd go over.
Yeah.
I think they're clearly the best team in that division.
So that second first-round pick that they're going to have is going to be
25.
Yeah,
right. 32. Who knows?
The Dolphins, 8.5. Plus 125 to the over, minus 150 to the under. Everybody's going under.
Yeah, and they should. I bet that moves to even 7.5.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I don't know that he's a good head coach.
I'm not sure either.
I think he's a heck of an offensive coordinator.
Right.
He could scheme the hell out of an offense, but I don't know if the everyday.
I don't know how much team building falls on him, but I don't like the team
There's
building.
a reason all these defensive players want out of there.
Yeah.
Like,
and if anything, they're going to lose Ramsey. They might lose Tyreek, you know.
The Vikings, 8.5. Minus 155 to the over, plus 130 to the under. So people are hammering the over.
I say I'd lean towards the over. I mean, I didn't have a lot of faith in Darnold at this point last year either. But it is a young quarterback that hasn't played.
Again, tough division.
Yeah. I guess they think they're going to be 3rd in the division.
The Patriots.
They must be high because they weren't on the 5.5 or 6.5.
7.5.
Ooh, I'm clearly
and it's
going
minus
under.
145 to the over and plus 120 to the under. So people are hammering over 7.5.
I'm going under that.
Now, I understand they might be the second best team in that division.
Maybe.
I have to squint, though, to see it.
Distant second, right. Hey, and Vrabel's great, but they just don't have that many good players.
Right.
I mean, it's still a year away from being a year away.
Are they going to go better than 3-3 in the division?
No. I mean, I think they're 0-2 against the Bills, and then they get one other or whatever, you know? Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones so far.
And it's
especially if it's paying off.
It's plus 120 to the under. The Saints,
one of the worst.
6.5.
I'm still going under.
Plus 120 to the over, minus 145 to the under.
Jets out. Yeah. I wonder if they fall to 5.5 too.
The Giants is 5.5.
I'm going over that. They have a D line.
Plus 125 to the over.
Okay.
Minus 150 to the under. People are hammering the under on that.
I mean, I think everyone thinks they're terrible, and I get that, and they're on the hot seat. But Wilson can win them games. Winston can win them games, you know?
Yeah, you're getting to win 6 games.
Right. Like I like their quarterback room more than the Browns or the Saints.
Yeah,
to win this year, maybe more than the Titans. I mean, just to win this year.
The Jets,
They're
5.5.
bad. Yeah, they're bad.
Minus 155 to the over. So people are hammering the over on that
I
one.
kind of like the over though, just because of division.
Plus 130 to the under.
If they can win 2 in the division, it's a pretty good start.
The Eagles, 11.5. Minus 118 to the over, minus 102 to the under.
There must not be any 12.5s then. I thought they might be 12.5, which I was going to go under. But I'd probably go over 11.5.
We'll skip over the Steelers for now. San Francisco, 10.5. Plus 110 to the over, minus 130 to the under.
I mentioned they have the easiest schedule in the league. I should have said this before. The Giants have the hardest and the Browns have the second hardest, which gives them another chance of getting first overall. I don't know. I'm going to go under on the Niners. I still think there's a lot of holes.
A lot of their stars are guys who get hurt a lot.
Yeah, and Kittle, Williams, McCaffrey, they're old.
They're old and they're a little brittle.
And they have to be more quarterback reliant now.
The Seahawks, 7.5. Minus 125 to the over, plus 105 to the under.
Good defense. I'd probably go over. You said they play both Souths, which is interesting, helpful.
Are they the worst team in that division? Because according to this, they are.
That's a close one. I think
Arizona was at 8.5.
Is it the Niners?
The Niners were actually the favorite.
I know.
To this.
More so than the Rams?
Rams were 9.5.
Yeah.
Niners were 10.5. Arizona,
I think the Rams
8.5.
are clearly number 1. The other 3 are about the same to me.
Yeah.
But perception's different.
Tampa Bay, over 9.5, or over, the number's 9.5, plus 115 to the over, minus 140 to the under. A lot of people picking the under.
I would go over. I think they'd win at least 4 in the division, maybe 6. I mean,
split the difference. It's 5.
Yeah, right.
It's
still a pretty
there.
good start, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably it's totally different odds. But if you look at what's it pay to win the division, I would think besides the Bills, they might be the most easy favorite for me.
Yeah. Tennessee, 5.5, minus 155 to the over, plus 130 to the under.
Probably go under.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad, right? It's a tough one.
The Commanders.
I'm going under.
9.5.
Oh, I thought it'd be 10.5 for sure.
Minus 120 to the over, plus 100 to the under.
They scream plexiglass principle to me, but I thought that number would be higher. Maybe it got bet down. I'll still go under.
The Steelers. 8.5. Plus 100 to the over, minus 120 to the under.
If they signed Aaron Rodgers today, do you think it goes to 9.5?
Yeah, because I think,
or at least the odds.
I think
change.
they get bet like crazy.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to go roll with the quarterbacks they have. Even if it's Cousins.
Yeah,
I think the odds change that day. I would go over.
I would go over as well.
Yeah,
I mean, we just went through Mike Clay's fantasy forecast thing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be come up with 12 games where they were either favored
or it was a split.
Or it was a split.
50-50, yeah.
It tells me they're going to get more than 8.5.
And everyone's out, well, Tomlin loses games he shouldn't. Well, he wins games he shouldn't, too. Everybody sort of does.
Everybody does,
That's why they play him.
He actually wins more games that he's not supposed to win than he loses games that he's...
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'd have to go back and remember the Clay thing, but I'm sure they were dogs against the Ravens twice and at least the Bengals once.
Well, I know... I can remember, I think it was at the end of...
I think a Browns one was 50-50.
It was the end of the 2023 season, and I saw the stat out there that as an underdog, straight underdog, he had a winning record.
That's crazy.
He was like 7 or 8 games over 500. No other head coach, and Belichick was still coaching. No other head coach was above 500.
Wow.
As an underdog.
Wow, that's crazy. Wins those games.
Yeah.
Plus primetime games. We haven't seen the schedule yet. I mean, that's true for all teams.
Yeah, we'll see that in a couple of weeks. But
we do know one's overseas, but
Yeah, so
interesting. Yeah.
But I would go over 8.5.
I would too.
Even if it's Mason Rudolph, I'm going over 8.5.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they'll find ways to win games.
I mean, they probably win 4 in the division. Pretty good start.
At least 3.
Know? Yeah, I like 3 as a minimum.
Yeah.
I don't want to play Thursday night in Cleveland.
No.
I hope that doesn't happen. But
thankfully, they don't ask us to play Thursday night.
We'll go even worse.
I just have to attend. Yeah, we go really bad. Yeah. Really, really bad.
No, that's a great.
ESPN, Ben Solak has put out the Rookie of the Year predictions.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The ranking the candidates. And
I haven't given this any thought.
Offensive Rookie of the Year, his top 4 guys are Cam Ward, which makes complete sense.
Quarterback's always get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, like Baker and Saquon were the same year, and Baker won it,
Yeah.
which probably shouldn't have, but, he was a quarterback.
Ashton Genty is second.
I'm going to say he has to be right on his heels, though.
But then 3 and 4 are interesting. Tyler Shuck, which I
Could be a starting
kind of get.
quarterback.
Yeah, he could be the
yeah.
starter. And Jackson Dart.
Oh, I don't think
I
Dart's
can't go
on
with
it.
Jackson Dart at all.
No. Shuck makes sense. I
Yeah.
think he's got a pretty
got a
good
path
chance
to
to
starting.
be a
Yeah.
17-game starter. Dart, I can't imagine he's going to play in the first month.
Yeah.
I mean, at a minimum, and maybe deeper into it. And maybe I'm crazy.
Those are
but-
the odds-on favorites. Those are the 4 top odds favorites. His picks are different than that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Boy, I would not put any money on
I think
Dart.
they're trying to get the New York vote or the New York money to go, hey, Giants drafted a quarterback. Let's put a bunch of money on that.
How do you put him over Ted McMillan or Hunter or?
Okay, so here's the list
running
that Ben
backs.
Solak came up with.
Yeah, I like Ben's work.
Cam Ward,
Okay, that's fine.
Ashton
he's going to
Genty.
start in week 1.
Tet McMillan ahead of Shuck,
I agree.
Travis Hunter at 5.
Sounds like he's going to be receiver first.
Sounds like it,
Yeah. I would take him over McMillan.
Matthew Golden with the Packers.
Very possible.
Emeka Egbuka with the Buccaneers.
Tough. I wonder what Godwin's ankle situation is, but they gave him money,
And then Jackson Dart at 8. None of the running backs. I'm kind of surprised.
I would definitely. I've been looking more and more into dynasty rookie ranks and all that. So, I mean, this is kind of fresh on my tip of my tongue. R.J. Harvey, to me, is running behind a good line and a decent offense.
Oh,
and a run first
that's on his final list. He was mixing things. He was doing it first.
Okay.
So here's his final list. I should have read this whole thing before I got to it.
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, so he has Cam Ward, Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton 3.
I get it, but
That's a crowded backfield.
that's a crowded backfield. And as of right now, J.K. Dobbins is there, who was pretty good last year,
Then Tet McMillan.
Okay.
Then Tyler Shuck.
Would you Shuck higher?
He's a quarterback.
Yeah, it sure helps.
Yeah.
If he plays 17 games.
Travis Hunter at 6. 7 is Matthew Golden. 8, Emeka Egbuka. 9, Quinshaw Judkins.
Okay.
10, Travion Henderson.
Okay. I would have Harvey over almost all those guys.
11 is Jackson Dart. 12 is R.J. Harvey with the Broncos.
Mhm. I'm just thinking about competition for playing time.
13 is Caleb Johnson.
I was thinking he should be higher too, but
14 is Colston Loveland. 15, Tyler Warren.
has a tight end ever won it?
I mean, if he didn't
Yeah,
win it
Bowers
last year,
didn't,
if he didn't win it,
right,
didn't win it last year, it's not going to be done.
Right. I mean, it's hard. You're not going to have a better year than him.
16, Will Howard.
Wow.
Yeah. 17, Shedeur Sanders. 18, Dylan Gabriel.
I was going to ask, do you think there's any other starting quarterbacks on week 1 than Shuck or Ward?
I don't see it.
And maybe in Cleveland, but I doubt it.
If I were doing this list,
Yeah.
Ward would definitely be 1.
Him and Genty stand alone.
Genty
to
would
me.
be 2.
Yeah.
Hampton wouldn't be my 3.
He wouldn't either.
Shuck would actually be my 3.
I think it's between Shuck, Tet, and Hunter.
If Shuck starts, think about it in terms of
if he's the opening starter, that's a huge start.
think about it in terms of what happened last year.
Mhm.
Jaden Daniels was the favorite, more or less.
I would think
after
Caleb
week 4.
Williams.
By
Oh,
week
wow,
4, yeah.
clearly. Yeah.
Early in the season, he was a favorite. Knicks closed the gap later, but it was still Daniels to lose
Yeah,
because Nick started all those games. So if Shuck starts all the games and gets better as the season goes on,
he has a Knicks-like season.
let's say he throws 18 touchdown passes.
Right. It doesn't stink.
Doesn't stink, yeah.
Right.
He's going to be in that conversation ahead of any of these other guys. I mean, honestly,
I would have him over Hampton for sure.
Yeah.
I think McMillan and Hunter have strong cases.
It's just,
I think Hunter's going to play a lot of offense.
that's fine. Is he going to catch 70 passes?
I don't know.
80 passes?
Right. I think Shuck would be my 3 as well, but I would tier them Ward and Genty, tier 1. McMillan, Hunter, Shuck, tier 2. Harvey might be in my tier 2.
I would have Judkins, Harvey, and Johnson in the same tier and ahead
of Hampton.
Right. Because I think there's more of a path for them to be the true
immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be a split backfield from the start. That's why I keep going back to Harvey. I don't know what his competition is.
Yeah. I mean, he probably won't be the third down back.
Probably not.
They get the kid from Youngstown State.
And they still have the Notre Dame dude who's a banger. But I mean, that's not much to be in your way.
Yeah.
The tight ends?
No.
I just think that's such a hard road.
It's rookie wide receivers. Yes, we've seen a bunch come out and play really well in recent years, but they didn't have competition.
I'd say Ibuka and Golden have a tough road.
Yeah.
I like Golden's chances better. Who are some of the other receivers that are even in the mix?
Like Hunter's not going to be the number 1 receiver on the team. He's going to fight with Brian Thomas for catches.
I would imagine, yeah. I mean, but I could see 70 to 80, though, when it's all said and done. That's why I'd probably have Tet ahead of him. That tier 2, I guess I'd go Shuck, Tet, Hunter. Hunter's highlight film.
I think I would have all those running backs, including Hampton, in that group, in that tier 2 guys.
I keep avoiding Judkins because I think their offense is going to be terrible.
I think it's going to be bad, but if he gets 250 carries,
that will go a real long way.
Yeah, he's going to probably end up with around 1,000 yards. And
you think Henderson out-touches, not out-carries, out-touches Ramondre?
Yes.
I think he out-catches him.
Yes, I think he does just overall because it's the first time that Ramondre Stevenson puts the ball on the ground.
Right.
It's done.
I mean, they said a lot by drafting, Henderson where they did.
In that group, they're not the ones that gave him money.
No, right. Any other backs? I mean, there's always like one injury away guy. Yeah.
Somebody will emerge and have a few weeks here and there, but I don't know if there's anybody that
I'm putting money on at the moment or anything. I mean, Caleb Johnson's not terrible. Terrible bet.
If he puts up the kind of numbers that, again, they posted on ESPN earlier this week, if he has almost 1,000 yards and 7 touchdown catches and 20 to 25 catches, he'll be in the conversation.
Yeah. So I tweeted this. I just want to get the numbers right. So first off, Jaylen Warren, in any game he's been in,
never had 50. He's
never had 50% of the carries in any game. I mean, which is that's on a negative. By the way, Twitter's so dumb. I put
this Twitter as it is.
Right. I put this out. Jaylen Warren has never had more than 50% of the team's designated carries in a game in his career. Why do you hate Jaylen Warren so much? I'm like, geez, it's just a fact. I'm not in charge of giving out his carries.
If you state a fact, you're hating.
Yeah, that's what makes me crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you hate on him? So I'm like, I love Jaylen Warren. I think he's tremendous, but I don't divvy out his carries. I'm just reciting the stat. But anyway, everyone knows Arthur Smith.
He's had like 15 touches in a game like 3 times in his career.
Right. I mean, so Arthur Smith has had a top 3 in rushing attempts season in 4 of his last 5 years. His teams have been in the top 3
when he's been a head
attempts.
coach or a coordinator.
Head coach or coordinator. And his teams have totaled 500 plus RB touches in each of the last 3 years. Najee Harris touched the ball 299 times.
299 times.
That are vacated.
Let's say Caleb Johnson gets 275 of those.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Not even all of them.
No, right. But he catches fewer balls than Najee did.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many he caught.
But let's say he's, as we think he will be.
250 touches, he could be in
If he's more explosive, which we think he will be, he's going to be in that conversation.
8 or 9 touchdowns. You're probably over 1,000 yards if you have 250 touches.
Yeah.
All-purpose yards, And what if Warren gets dinged up?
If he has a Tyler Algier season of 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
Tyler Algier rushed for over 1,000 yards.
He probably was 4th or 5th in the voting that year, or whatever. He wasn't far off.
Yeah.
But no, I think Johnson's not a terrible bet. I mean, there's a lot of backs that are an injury away.
Right.
That the last 10 games they could blow up.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did he do defense?
Yeah, he did do defense. So I'm gonna scroll all the way to the bottom this time. I'm actually gonna look at this. Those are the base for the defensive and his picks.
I guess Abdul Carter would be the leader in the clubhouse.
You would be wrong.
Okay.
Number 1 for him is Michael Williams with the 49ers.
Okay. I wonder what Carter will do on 1st and 10.
That's the question there because they got a crowded.
Yeah. Everyone's talking about, he can play off the ball like Parsons. But I'm like, yeah, but you draft him.
That's not why you drafted him to do.
Pick for, right.
2 is Jalen Walker with the Falcons.
It's not a bad one. In a dome, I think he'll rush past for a while.
He'll have a bunch of tackles.
Yeah. Michael Williams is definitely going to be the starter opposite Bosa and see a lot of one-on-ones.
3 is Abdul Carter.
Okay.
4, Shamar Stewart with the Bengals. I don't see it.
I don't either.
That would not
with
be my pick.
With all the good edge rushers in this class.
5 is Maxwell Hairston with the Bills. I don't know that I see that either.
You got to have picks.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. He's
going to get thrown at.
Yeah, the rookie corners get attention.
6 is Carson Schlesinger with the Browns.
I was going to say Schlesinger or Campbell as an off-the-ball linebacker, especially if the Browns' defense is on the field a lot. Because going back, I think their offense would be
He could have a bunch of tackles 6 yards down the field.
Yeah.
7, Travis Hunter.
I don't know. He'll get the playing time.
Yeah, I just don't know that there's going to be the road to snaps there. 8, Mason Graham.
Okay. I don't see it either. But
9, James Pierce with the Falcons.
Possibly. I might take Mike Green over a couple of those.
It's tough for those rookies with the Ravens to get on the field.
I know. There's more competition, but I like their chances of winning games late and getting cheap sacks.
10 is Walter Nolan.
Very possible.
With the Cardinals.
Yeah.
11, Kenneth Grant with the Dolphins.
Tough to put numbers up at his position.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Style of play, yeah.
12, Jihad Campbell with the Eagles.
I'm a little shocked neither safety's gotten mentioned. And I would have been higher on Campbell.
13 is Jahdae Barham with the Broncos.
He gets his hands on the ball a few times.
And
right.
He'll be on the field as a nickel.
Yeah, good pass rush.
14 is Derek Harmon.
I don't know if he'll have enough snaps, but he can make an impact.
15 is Tyleek Williams. That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
16 is Malachi Starks.
I don't like Enuari all that much, but I think his role could be near the line of scrimmage, trade up in the second round. I mean, if those were like the Vegas odds and it paid huge, I'd consider one of those safeties.
Yeah. I mean, is Maxwell Hairston clearly the best or in the best situation of any of the defensive backs?
He would have been 8 picks lower for me than where he ranks them. I'd have definitely both linebackers ahead of him.
Yeah. Now, teams are probably going to have to throw against the Bills, but you could run on the Bills last year, though. That was the thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Hairston, I don't even know would be my top corner, let alone
defensive back. I think if I were rating
corners are hard.
If I were rating the defensive backs, I might have Barron number 1.
Yeah, because he'll be very versatile. Maybe he has a sack or two.
Yeah.
Near line of scrimmage.
You're blitzing out of the slot.
I like his chances to pick up a fumble or scoop and score better.
Yeah. You're going to be around the ball more.
Going to be around the ball more. Yeah.
Yeah.
He might be my number 1 DB.
And I would have Harmon ahead of the nose tackle types.
Yeah, I love Grant, but that's him and Williams almost have no chance.
That got me to thinking the situation. I talked to another of Derek Harmon's high school coaches yesterday on the phone, and we were talking, and it got me to thinking about. He was the Steelers' target all the way.
It sure feels that way.
Because so people are wondering when the Steelers took Yahya Black and said he's going to play on the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Steelers went into this saying, okay, if we have to take Kenneth Grant, fine.
We will. Right.
We'll take him. We want Harmon because we're going to keep Keanu Benton at nose tackle. Let him play nose tackle. He's going to still play, the 3 technique in the nickel and dime and rush the passer there. But if you took Kenneth Grant, now you're kicking Keanu Benton out to end as a full-time guy. You only need one nose tackle.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
You know, a third nose tackle. That's why they got rid of
Adams all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, we don't need Adams anymore. We don't need 3 nose tackle types. But if we were going to move Benton to defensive end,
then we needed to hit that a little harder.
Yeah, then we needed to,
And I think we're all under the assumption that Black could do it.
He could.
Yeah, right.
He's just taller.
He's just the leverage thing can be a problem.
The leverage,
right.
playing it with that height.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of playing defensive end for him, he's 6'6" and he has 35-inch arms.
Yeah. He's not going to do it on 3rd and 8.
Right,
but he can battle with the big tackle, the Penei Sewells.
Yeah.
Right.
He can be an Aaron Smith type and go out there and tie people up.
And just be a power player. Because we mentioned that with Grant, too. Like, I didn't think Grant would only be a nose if that was a Steelers pick. But he probably would be predominantly,
Yeah, I just think that with Harmon, that when they got Harmon, that was their target, I think that changed some things. I think they would have taken him over Nolan and Grant.
I don't mean to talk badly about Nolan because I think he's in a phenomenal situation and I love the player. But there was stuff. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But after the fact, it feels like the Steelers would have taken Harmon over Grant or Nolan.
Yeah.
And he's super clean off the field and all that stuff too.
Everybody I've talked to, I mean,
more than that. I mean, he's a gem.
And the high school coach that I talked to yesterday also coached Malik McDowell, who was a high draft pick in the league.
Yeah.
And he says, he's better.
Michigan State.
Yeah. He said Derek's a way better player, way better person.
Really? Okay.
So
McDowell didn't last.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, those Rookie of the Year honors are good stuff, too.
Yeah, it gives you an idea of who might stand out this year, who landed in the right situation.
There might be money to be made on the defensive side. I bet there's some long odds because there's not a clear-cut favorite to me.
There really isn't. I think a lot of these guys could be good this year.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to have the best year? I mean, the only one I would cross off of there that's in the top 10 would definitely be Shamar Stewart.
Right.
I don't see that, and I don't see Hairston being 5.
No. This position's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to look at it 2 ways. Is who has a real good chance to lead all rookies in sacks? And I think that's why he went with Williams and Walker right off the bat, which I guess I probably wouldn't argue. And could an off-the-ball linebacker or safety just make so many plays, tackle, just rack up stats across the board.
I hate tackles. I hate tackles being counted. They're not even an official NFL statistic.
Right.
But it is what it is. Mm-hmm. They still, people look at the gaudy tackle number. Whoa, he had 125 tackles. Well,
that's inflated.
All tackles are not created equal.
No, like you said, and if it's 7-8 yards downfield too, or you're
somebody's got to get the ball carrier on the ball,
right.
On the ground.
And depends on your score in that building.
Yeah.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.